The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to a REL Pacific webinar using the program outcomes, measures, and target application to evaluate program effectiveness. So we hope this webinar can provide some new information or feedback that will empower you in the programs that you're monitoring and evaluating. So I'm Joanne Kelly. I'm a communications consultant here with the Regional Educational Laboratory of the Pacific. So I'll be your facilitator for the day. Let's go ahead and start out with just a few tech tips. If you take a look at your dashboard over to the right, you'll see that you have a couple of screens that you can access, the poll screen, the question screen, the chat screen. So please familiarize yourself with that before we begin. And also, just so you know, everyone is muted today just throughout the program, just to avoid the echo. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand. And if we can't get to them during the webinar, we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So before we begin with the presentations, I just want to share with you a feedback survey link. This is the link here. It's not live in the big screen, but if you take a look at the chat and questions box over to your right, my colleague is just placing that live URL link for you to use. If you could save this link and complete the survey at the end of the webinar, we'd really appreciate your feedback. It helps us to provide better events and webinars for you in the future. So to begin, I'll go ahead and review the agenda. We're starting out today with the welcome and Pacific region context. In about 5 minutes, I'll go ahead and introduce Nolan Malone. He's the director of REL Pacific at REL International, and he'll be giving you an introduction to the POMT application, the Program Outcomes, Measures, and Targets application. We'll move on to a presentation with Krishna Narayan, who's the CEO and founder of Island Innovation, and he'll be explaining some of the quick reference guides that he co-authored. At 12:35, we'll be handing the presentation over to Fatima Frank, who is a project consultant here at REL Pacific, and she'll be going through the actual POMT application for your computer. Finally, we'll be ending with a question and answer session, so we'll be getting to all those questions that hopefully you'll have been adding to our list throughout the presentation, and we'll finish up with a wrap-up and that survey link once more. To begin, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nolan Malone. Nolan is the Vice President of REL's Pacific Center for Changing the Odds and Director of REL Pacific. As the Director of REL Pacific, Nolan guides our projects in applied research and development to address the region's most vital education needs. Nolan is one of the co-authors of the Education Logic Model and Program Outcomes, Measures, and Targets applications, as well as the accompanying quick reference guides. Nolan will be introducing the POMT app and providing you with some context around its creation. Nolan will also be showing you an introductory video on REL Pacific. It's just 3 minutes long, and it should give you just a little bit of context about the Regional Educational Laboratory System and what we do here at REL Pacific.
Aloha everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Again, my name is Nolan Malone. I'm the Director of REL Pacific, and today I'm happy to share some information with you as a preamble to some of the neat information that you're going to be receiving from my colleagues, Krishna and Fatima. First, however, we thought we would start with a video that gives you a little bit of context about REL Pacific. I'll begin that now.
REL Pacific at REL International is one of 10 regional educational laboratories, often referred to as RELs. The RELs are funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences. We serve education stakeholders in 3 U.S. Pacific territories: American Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and Guam, as well as 3 nations in free association with the United States. the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Republic of Palau, and the Federated States of Micronesia, which includes the 4 states of Chuuk, Koshrai, Pohnpei, and Yap. We also serve the state of Hawaii. At REL Pacific, we identify priority needs in the region through comprehensive reviews of education system data and reports, ongoing discussions with education agency staff, and continual contact with the field. We also support consortia called research alliances that bring together stakeholders in the Pacific to work collaboratively to address problems and questions of high priority and relevance in the field of education. Our work focuses on 4 priority topic areas: strengthening teacher effectiveness, engaging families and communities in education, ensuring college and career readiness, and optimizing data systems. REL Pacific is housed at McREL International's Pacific Center for Changing the Odds in Honolulu, Hawaii. We are a private, nonprofit organization that draws upon the best of education research to translate what works into culturally conscious innovations that benefit learners throughout the Pacific. The REL Pacific region is geographically vast. The region served by REL Pacific covers 5 time zones and more than 1,000 islands, islets, and atolls. The region is mostly rural and spans a geographic area larger than the entirety of the continental United States. Although all 7 of the major entities served by REL Pacific use English as the language of instruction, 5 of those 7 also instruct in an indigenous language, such as Chamorro, Marshallese, Palauan, Chuukese, Yapese, Pohnpeian, Koshrayan, Samoan, or Hawaiian. For more information on REL Pacific, please visit our website, relpacific.mcrel.org, and sign up for our newsletter for updates on projects, events, and news.
Hopefully that provided everybody with a nice overview of what the REL Pacific program of work is doing. For today, with the webinar, however, what we're going to be doing is talking about one of the tools that we've developed. And I wanted to give a little bit of background on that tool before I introduce our next presenter. Basically, folks may have attended a webinar that we presented earlier this summer on an education logic model tool. And this webinar is about a second tool that follows up on that education logic model tool that's intended to provide folks with not only an opportunity to lay out their programs in a logic model that would allow them to see how they're achieving the outcomes that they're seeking through the programs and activities that they're offering, by allowing them to develop a plan that would allow them to monitor actual progress. Sometimes it's very, very tempting to go through the process of creating a logic model and being really, really happy that you've completed it and it's a really, really nice looking diagram. But then what happens to it? What do you do with that logic model? So this application that we're presenting today and that Krishna and Fatima will be sharing allows you to actually monitor progress towards each of those outcomes that you specify in the logic model, something that is often overlooked as we're dragged away from this kind of activity in order to attend to lots of other competing activities. The entire idea is to make it simple for educators so that when you do the logic model, you create a logic model in one of our applications, you can grab the information that you entered there to help you monitor that logic model. Kind of like TurboTax is the way we've set it up. So it's step-by-step guiding you through so that it will be very, very easy. We think that this will be really, really helpful for educators because it can provide you really, really detailed information that allows you to explain very, very clearly what your outcomes are, how you actually expect to achieve them, and how you're going to measure your progress towards them. More importantly, it also gives you a bird's eye view in a very, very simple interface that Fatima will be sharing with you called a dashboard so that you get that higher level view as well. So without further ado, I do want to introduce my colleague and friend, Krishna Narayan. Krishna is the founder and CEO of Island Innovation, the company that developed the technology behind the education logic model, program and outcomes and measures targets applications. Krishna is also the co-author of 2 of the quick reference guides that are contained in both of those applications. The first one, Understanding Program Monitoring, the relationships among outcomes, indicators, measures, and targets. And the second one, Program Monitoring, the role of leadership in planning, assessment, and communication, are contained in both modules if you downloaded them. Krishna is going to go ahead and provide an overview of the variables and elements involved in program monitoring and evaluation. We'll also speak to the role of leadership in that process. So, without further ado, here's my colleague Krishna.
Thank you, Dr. Malone, and thank you to the REL Pacific team. My name is Krishna Narayan. I'm the CEO and founder of Island Innovation. We've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Malone and Wendy Kekahito since 2012 to take their concepts around ELM and POMT and bring them to life in terms of the technology. I reside on Maui with my daughter and my wife, and we're happy to present from Maui to all of you today. Dr. Malone mentioned 2 papers, 2 quick reference guides. These are products of both the REL Pacific team as well as IES. They are available in the actual application, and when my colleague Fatima shows you the application in a few minutes, you'll be able to see how to view these and actually print them out or get PDFs of them if you'd like. They're also available on the REL Pacific website. We'll present today at the webinar and follow these papers to some extent, so you can go back and refer to them and understand the relationships among outcomes, indicators, measures, and targets, as well as the role of leadership in planning, assessment, and communications. Throughout the presentation, we want to get all of you involved, so we'll actually be using the really cool technology that's within the webinar here. We'll ask you to respond to some polls, as well as to post some comments and respond to some questions. So we'll get you interacting with the presenters right away. So let's start with discussing what is program monitoring or what is program evaluation. And essentially, program monitoring or program evaluation can be understood by its components. And there are 4 basic components. I'm going to talk about these each in detail and give examples, but just at a high level, we start with outcomes. We next have indicators, measures, which are comprised of both benchmarks and baselines, and I will take some time in a few minutes to explain the difference between both of those. And actually then Fatima will show how they're used in the actual application. And then we have targets. So what are the benefits of programming? Well, obviously, if the program goes well and it's proceeding according to your plans, you'll have very happy people, both teachers and students, throughout that process. But seriously, there are 3 main benefits. The first has to do with communications. If you are monitoring or evaluating your programs on a continuous basis, you'll be able to have enhanced communication with the people that are involved in your program. This includes both stakeholders that have sponsored your program as well as people that are responsible with you for executing the program on a day-to-day basis. The next area is evaluations. All of us conduct evaluations either at the tail end of a program or as a program is progressing. And one of the benefits of monitoring and evaluation is to use evidence as you evaluate your program, to actually see tangibly what is happening or what is not happening and be able to take corrective action as required. The last area is around decisions. We all want to make better decisions, and the best way to do that is if we have data. So the tools that you'll see today, as well as the benefits of program monitoring, allow you to make data-informed decisions in a better way. So what I'd like to do now is to take a poll and basically ask you what kind of program are you planning to monitor and evaluate. So we've given you a couple of choices. One is to strengthen teacher effectiveness. The second is to engage families and communities in education. The third program you might be interested in monitoring or ensuring college and career readiness for the students, or it might not be one of the above, and you can select other. And then enter your specific answer in the question and comment box below them. So I can see the early results here. I'll put the results up on the screen here. It's actually fairly interesting. We have just under 50% for strengthening teacher effectiveness and around 40% for engaging families and communities. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll. It looks like most of you have responded. We've got close to 80% of you that have voted. And we'll put the results up here. So you can see that it's actually an equal split between the first in terms of strengthening teacher effectiveness and engaging families and communities in education. And then almost 50% of you are monitoring or evaluating programs that have to do with college and career readiness. And about 40% are monitoring other types of programs. And in the comments box, we're actually seeing teacher effectiveness and the community engagement also. And then also beginning teacher support. So thank you for participating. And as I said, we want to engage you throughout the presentation here, so I'm going to be prompting you to answer some more questions as we go forward. So I want to dive into the program components now, and we'll start with outcomes. And start with, what is an outcome? Here is the official definition, and I think many of you, obviously being in education, will have an understanding of an outcome. But it's good to set the foundation and have a common vocabulary around these words. So an expected result in an individual's behavior, their knowledge or skills, or the change in practices or policy as a result of participating in an activity or program. Now, outcomes are often classified in terms of a time horizon, a short, a mid, or a long term. These time frames can actually vary by the scope of the program. So if you're running a multi-year program, your long-term outcomes might be several years downstream. If the time horizon for your program is a year, then midterm might be the second or the third quarter. One example of a program outcome that may be very familiar to many of you is around high school students achieving improved standardized test scores in high school math and English programs. So what I'd like to do now is to invite you to use the comment and questions box on the right and to participate and send us what sort of outcomes you're seeking to achieve through your programs. And I'll read them off as they come in. So some of you are looking to, a couple of the outcomes are to look at supporting teacher effectiveness, and improving that, increase student achievement. We're looking at outcomes around students entering the STEM pipeline, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We have some people interested in outcomes having to do with improved math competency, K through 6 students achieving higher test scores in vocabulary. These are very good outcomes here. I'm going to cover a few more. You can keep putting them in, and we'll bring them up. Increased knowledge about parent advocacy. Here's an important one, reductions in the dropout rates and increased attendance. Graduation rates, that's also another good one, thank you. More effective teachers in low economic areas. It's a challenge for many school districts. Thank you for providing that as an outcome that you're looking at your programs. Teacher effectiveness for the LEP population. So I'm going to move on now and discuss the next component, which is indicators. An indicator is an observable and measurable behavior or finding that's used to understand information about complex systems. An indicator is information that shows whether progress is being made. So continuing with my example around standardized test scores for math and English, an indicator would be the percent of high school students with improved test scores in those particular areas. So similarly, I'd like to ask you to post on the right-hand side in the comments and questions box some of the indicators that you might be using in your programs. College readiness is the first one that comes up. percent of students advancing to the college math level, reductions in recidivism rates for students. Another indicator that somebody has shared is a percent of students enrolling in college, again, in the STEM subject, and the percentage of those completing that program. A very important one, an indicator that looks at the reduction in teacher turnover in the first 5 years of teaching. Higher students passing Praxis 1. Looking at an indicator around the percent of students who are chronically absent. And an indicator discussing the increase in graduation with a degree in STEM. There's a last one here, which is looking at an indicator that somebody's interested, the percentage of teachers who are actually absent. So these are all very important indicators that obviously you all with your programs are dealing with and trying to address directly. So I want to move on to measures. And a measure is an instrument or a device or a method that provides information. It's often quantifiable data on an outcome. A measure is a metric for checking on progress of an indicator. The example here, again, discussing math and English test, is the scores on the standardized test, so the actual measures that we'll be looking at for this particular component. So similarly, if you could share with us the measures that you are interested in tracking on your specific program in the comment and questions box on the right-hand side. We have an individual who's interested in measuring the Praxis 1 scores. This is consistent with a previous comment that came in. Scores on math placement tests, very important. The measure around student assessment rubrics, teacher use of formative assessments, the number of graduates who receive a STEM degree. We have an individual who's interested, actually a couple individuals are interested in the teacher turnover rate as an important measure for their particular program. The teacher candidate disposition scores. A measure that has to deal with the time a counselor intervenes with students with 2 consecutive absences. And then finally, a measure around teacher working conditions survey. These are all very good items that all of you are dealing with directly in your program. So thank you for sharing those. So within measures, there are two components. One is benchmark and the other is baseline. So let's discuss benchmark first. So benchmark is a standard against which a program's results and progress can be compared. A benchmark is a similar measure for a similar group against which project can be gauged. So sometimes there's confusion between baseline and benchmark. Baseline I'll define in a minute for you, but benchmark you can think as sort of an external piece of information that you're trying to compare against, and a baseline is your pre-intervention before you start your program, sort of where your program was. And again, I'll show you the formal definition here in a minute. The example consistent with looking at test scores, our benchmark here might be that 70% of the students in other schools show improvement on standardized test scores in math and English. So we're interested in seeing how other schools are doing relative to how our school is doing. So if you could just take a moment and identify for us some of the benchmarks that you might be using in your programs currently. Again, you can use the comments and questions box on your right-hand side. So we have the first benchmark that somebody's identified, which is known as 55 by 2025 here in Hawaii. Another benchmark that one of the participants is identified is that 95% of the students participating enroll in a STEM subject in college. A benchmark can be the relative turnover of teachers at adjacent school districts. Another could be looking at, how absenteeism is taking place relative to other schools in the district. Keeping with the Praxis 1 example, the Praxis 1 passage rate of students at other HBCU, that's another location. The NAEP scores provide benchmark guidelines. These are all very good examples of benchmarks that you're using in your programs. So now we'll move to baseline, which is the other component in the metrics area for measurement. And as I sort of hinted at, a baseline is the pre-intervention level of a measure used as a starting point for measuring future progress. Fancy way of saying, where are we before we started our program? Or that means that's the pre-intervention level. A baseline is the performance level for that measure before the program begins. So in our example around test scores for math and English, in our particular case, we might be seeing that 50% of the students show improvement because we've implemented a specific program on their standardized test scores. But remember, we said that the benchmark for other districts might be at 70%. So you can start to see how you compare yourself against other areas, as well as understanding where you are before you implement your program. So if you could share with us what particular baselines you might be looking at in your program. You can use the box on the right-hand side there to put those in. Comparison to local and national norms, that's a good one. The rate at which attendance and absenteeism was set up in a program before you implemented the program to improve or reduce the absenteeism rate. In this particular case, it was teachers. Teacher candidates improving the written lesson plans for first education. This is a very good one. We've seen this more and more. 70% of undergraduates are engaged in research activity. Another baseline that somebody's dealing with here is the failure rate in pre-college math. And we also have the, going back on the teacher working condition survey, sort of what the value and the feedback is from teachers before a program was started. That would be another indicator of a baseline. So thank you again for that, for sharing that input. I think that's very helpful so that all of us as a community can understand the types of items that you're taking a look at. The next area in terms of program components is targets. And target is obviously where we're trying to get to. It's a specific value or level of a measure at a specific point in time in the future. The target is a measurable result being sought. So our example here is that we would like to see, as our new target, 80% of our students showing improvement on standardized test scores for math and English. So this is where the exciting part takes place. We set a target, and then we monitor, evaluate the program to see how we're progressing towards that target. So I'm curious to hear from all of you what are some of the targets that you're seeking to achieve through your specific program? We're looking for, in this particular case, undergraduate students. There's a small percentage of the undergraduate students engaged in research, and we'd like to see that percentage go higher. We have a specific target here in terms of the satisfaction level with specifically around teacher happiness or teacher satisfaction with their positions. Somebody's commented that they like in the example the 80% rate, but said that we would never achieve it. Well, targets are meant to be set and programs put into place to try and get there, and it takes hard work, obviously. There's another one that's come in here in terms of somebody setting a target to increase the math course pass rate by 50%. So I think you get the idea in terms of targets, in terms of setting those targets and understanding what you're trying to achieve in your particular program. And the last area is progress, and so we I think all understand what progress is. Our formal perspective on this is that it's forward movement towards an educational objective or target. Sometimes it's not forward movement, but that is at least how we'd like to take a look at it and hope that takes place. And it's the measure used to compare current performance with earlier performance and the target performance. So in our example here, we baselined our percentage of students at 50%. We had set the target at 80%. And our progress at this particular point in time, we're saying about 60% of our students through our particular program are showing improvement on standardized test scores in both English and math. So this is the $64,000 question. I'm sure I'll get a lot of very good input here, but what type of progress are you wanting to see in your particular programs, or what sort of progress is expected from your stakeholders or your parents, your administrators? So please go ahead and post those comments on the box on the right. There's an increased retention due to quick interventions by counselors. That is progress that people are looking to see to try and make. 90% retention of students, so they will graduate on a timely basis. There's a lot of emphasis in terms of keeping our students in school now, so that's a very good progress to try and achieve. A significant change above the baseline. That's a sort of a general comment, but that's true. That's what we want to see in any of these measures that are out there. And I appreciate you sharing all of these. It helps both us here as well as your colleagues in the field that are participating today to understand, what are the sort of things that you are dealing with your specific programs. 70% of the student veterans graduating in 4 years. And again, a comment from somebody still hoping for the 80% in my example, but we'll settle for 70%. And so I think these are all good pieces of information, and thank you for sharing those. So I've defined for you the components, and what I want to do is sort of switch gears here now and move into the second part of the presentation on my part here, which is the role of leadership in planning, assessment, and communications, specifically relative to program monitoring and evaluation. So I'd like to start by actually doing a poll and just ask you a very simple question. Will you be playing a leadership role in the program you have in mind today? So I'm going to open up the poll. And let you select yes, no, or I will be playing a leadership role in part of the program, but not the main part. So as the early results come in, it looks to be about half of you will be playing a leadership role in the program you have in mind today. And that was a very fast poll, obviously. So, and you can see on the screen here that 55% of you have said that, yeah, you will be playing a leadership role in the program that you have in mind today. 18% of you are saying no, so maybe you're participating in that particular team, but not ultimately the leader of that team. And a number of you, a fair number of you, at 30% merely are identifying you'll be playing part of a leadership role in that particular program. So thank you for sharing the results there, sharing your input on leadership. So there are three components that I'm going to discuss now. One is planning, the second one is assessment, and the last one is communications. Education programs are complex. All of you know this. I won't spend a lot of time explaining why. You deal with these every day. So when planning a program, it's really important to define the goals, the objectives, and to really document what resources and activities that are going to take place for your program, and clearly articulate the expected outcomes. So when you're thinking in terms of planning, what we feel is that the key measure of a successful leadership during program planning, it's fairly straightforward. And that measure is everybody on your team's ability to clearly articulate the milestones, the expected outcomes, what the schedules are, the activities, and the resources. To the extent that there are people on your team or stakeholders that you require to execute your program that aren't able to articulate, then something is not very well, it's not gone well in your planning process, and it would behoove you to go through the planning process again or go through a process to make sure that these are all very clear. Because if this is not done, typically your program will get into trouble downstream. So as a role of a leader, it is our expectation that you would make sure that people will be able to articulate these particular components within your program. If we look at assessment, assessment uses the data that you gather through the program monitoring and evaluation process to just see whether the program is on track and whether it's going to meet its expected outcomes, whether they be short, mid, or long-term outcomes. In the role of a leader, it's up to you to continue because it's not as if you can just start a program and then wait till it finishes to do an evaluation at the end. If that's the only process you follow, then chances are you're not going to have a very successful program. So we believe that you do this continuously, and we're going to show you the POMT tool that will make it easier for you to do that. And from a leader, you should be asking, in terms of a key measure, do you have access to the data? Can you cite or retrieve the data that helps you understand whether your program is on track or it's in trouble? If you don't have access to the data or you don't know where to get the data, chances are you really are not able to assess your program and its progress towards the outcomes. So look to that to be a key measure to really understand how you're doing in terms of assessment. Lastly is communication. You can see on the right-hand side a graphic. This is actually a dashboard from the POMT application, which you'll see in a minute when my colleague Fatima presents the application to you. And just at a high level, you can see green things and yellow things and one red thing. And we've tried to design the application so that you can drill down on the things that are in trouble, those that are yellow or red, and sort of leave the things that are green alone. So while it's important to track and assess program success, it's really, really important to communicate, where that progress is, and there are a lot of ways, obviously, to do that. One of the ways is this dashboard. You can use meetings, you can use reports, but we feel a dashboard is a quick way to articulate at a very high level what's going on in your particular program. And like a car dashboard, like your car's dashboard, you can visually see what's going on in a very simple way without overloading either yourself as the decision maker or people that are supporting you on your particular team for your program. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Joanne.
All right, thank you so much, Krishna, for that informative and engaging presentation. And thanks in particular to everyone who participated in the interactive sections of the presentation. It's always so interesting to hear what other folks are working on and their perspectives on program monitoring. You were a particularly generous group with your sharing, so thank you very, very much. Next on the agenda, we have Ms. Fatima Frank. So she'll be presenting on the actual computer application developed by REL Pacific, the program Outcomes, Measures, and Targets application. Fatima is a project consultant here at REL Pacific and has been overseeing the launch and dissemination of both the education logic model, the ELM, and the POMT applications. Fatima also answers most of the inquiries about the ELM and the POMT, so when you write in with questions, Fatima is most likely to be your contact here. Fatima will be introducing you to the POMT application itself, the user interface, including how to create, save, open, and print your dashboard. Fatima, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Joanne and Krishna. We're now ready to present this demonstration of the POMT, which complements our other application, the Education Logic Model, or the ELM. For those of you who may already be aware, or for those of you who are new to REL Pacific's education computer apps, the ELM app was developed to help you create a logic model to organize, communicate, and evaluate the outcomes of a program. The ELM app walks you through steps to identify the resources, activities, outputs, and outcomes, and then seeing how they connect all your intended activities with your intended outcomes. The POMT then takes your program to the next level by focusing on program monitoring, measuring, and tracking outcomes over time to evaluate the program's effectiveness. So for each outcome, the POMT helps you to identify your indicator, your measure, your target, benchmark, and baseline, and create a dashboard for monitoring and evaluation. So after designing your program using the ELM, you can use the POMT to measure its progress and explain results. So before I move on, I'd like to know how many of you have already viewed a webinar on the ELM application, which we presented on June 23rd. You'll see a poll pop up, and some of you might have seen it or not, and some of you might have seen a recording of the ELM webinar. So we're curious to see how many of you have viewed it in one way or another. Okay, great. So it looks like some of you have viewed our webinar. If you'd like to view it, you can always find a recorded webinar on our website. Also, you can find the webinar on McREL's PCCO YouTube channel. So before we dive into the application, let's go over what the app is and what the app is not. So the app is an interactive template that can be filled out to create a monitoring dashboard. It's meant for novice users and simple programs, and is a conversation starter used to explain your program, project, progress, or results. What the app is not is a detailed program monitoring plan. So details around monitoring and evaluation, designs such as sampling, data collection tools, and methods for analysis are not included. Now let's go over a few application specifications. The app is a local web application, so it runs on your computer. It uses a Google Chrome browser that's provided if you don't already have it. It does not need the internet. Data is stored locally in your computer. It runs on Macs and PCs. And it's available on the USB stick for our Pacific region educators. So let's take another quick poll. I'd like to know how many have already downloaded the most recent version of our application, which is version 1.03. Some of you might have downloaded a version, but you're not sure which one. That's okay. I'll let you know how you can find out which version of the app you've used. So let's look at our results. It looks like most of you haven't downloaded the POMT app at all. That's okay. The latest version of our application is version 1.03. It was available on July 1st. For those of you who have already downloaded it, please make sure to download a newer version. You can find it on our website. And for those of you who'd like to download it, you can always go to our website at relpacific.mcrel.org/POMT.html. Okay, so now we're ready to go into the application. After you've downloaded and installed, you'll find a POMT icon on your desktop. Okay. So once you've double-clicked on it, you'll arrive at this home page here. On the home page, you'll find a brief introduction. If you read it, it'll tell you how to get started. First, let's go over a few key features. You'll see this audio icon on your page. It's located on each page, and these are audio clips that provide instructions on how to complete your program monitoring and evaluation plan. Next, we'll go to the menu bar, which you'll find at the top of the screen. This menu bar will navigate you through the application, which we'll go over now, starting with the Contact Us page. Here at REL Pacific, we always welcome all feedback and want to know what's working for you or not working, or any trouble you may be experiencing. So if you have a question or a problem, you can always type in your question into the box here and hit send. And the email should already be populated for you. And you'll see in the subject line it already says request information in the POMT, and you'll also find the version number there so we can also better help you. So next, let's go to the About Us page. Here you'll see information on the development of the application. The POMT app was developed under the Institute for Education Sciences as part of the Regional Education Laboratory. It was created through partnership with REL Pacific Center for Changing the Odds and Island Innovations. You can also find the app version at the bottom of this page. So here you'll see we have the most updated version. Next, we'll go into the FAQ section. Here you'll find useful tips on using the applications and troubleshooting. Many of the questions were sent in by users, therefore this section should help you with many of your own questions. The FAQ section is interactive and organized into a few broad sections. You just click on your relevant section and then the question to expand the answer. You can also print a PDF copy to have as a reference. You can use that PDF icon over there and a new window will open with the entire FAQ document. Okay, so next we'll go under additional resources. Here you'll find sources that help to inform the application and also resources to provide users with additional information on program evaluation that was written by other organizations. If you'd like to learn more, please refer to these resources. We've provided a website, or you can open the PDFs directly with the PDF icon. So next, let's go to the reference guides. Here you'll find our quick, short reference guides that were developed by REL Pacific to provide information on creating logic models and developing a program monitoring plan. You'll see on this page there are 4 icons. You can click on these various icons to open up a quick reference guide. Again, these quick reference guides are about 3 to 4 pages. You can click on the icon and you'll see a separate PDF pop up, so you can print this and have it as a reference. Okay, so now we're ready to dive into the application and create a POMT dashboard. You can create your program in 2 ways. First, if you're starting new, you can go to the New Program button. And here for starting fresh, we can type in our program information. So you can put your program name, your name, the name of your school or organization, and a brief description. Then we'll hit Next. And here's one of the main screens, is your Outcomes page. The Outcomes page is divided into the short-term, mid-term, and long-term outcomes. The next main page is your Dashboard page. And here's where you can see an interactive screen of your program dashboard and track progress. Alternatively, if you've already created a program, perhaps you already used the OWN to create your program, you can open your Save program using the Existing Program button. First, you'll see a pop-up asking you to save your REL file. All files will be saved as a .rel file, whether it was created in the POMT or the OWN. This pop-up is a security feature in case you forget to save the app and accidentally exit. I'm going to go ahead and cancel. And I'll go to the existing program. And I'll find my previous REL file. And here it is. So if you already loaded into an existing program, all your program information will already be filled in. And then we can just go to hit next. And many of your outcomes will already be populated. Here you can see information on outcome components such as indicator, measure, target, actual, benchmark, and baseline. They're already filled out because I had previously filled these out. If you're starting new, the whole page will be blank, or if you've already created the ELM, only your short-term, mid-term, and long-term outcomes will be filled in. First, I want to go over a few key features of this page. If we go back up to the top, you'll see an overview page, or overview button. This will give you basic information on how to complete the POMT application. You'll also find a tutorial here that will guide you through the application if you need additional support. To scroll through the tutorial, you can click on the arrows to the right of the screen and also to the left of the screen if you want to go back. So going back to the outcomes page, you'll see it's again divided into short-term, mid-term, and long-term outcomes. You can highlight on the words to expand and collapse details around your outcome, or your indicator and measure to see less or more detail around each outcome component. On the left, you'll also see a plus sign. Here's where you can add additional outcomes, indicators, and measures. You can add up to 5 outcomes for each of the short, mid, and long term, and up to 3 indicators and measure for each outcome. Additionally, you'll see a trash can icon to the right, and here you can use a trash can to delete any outcomes, indicators, or measures that you no longer need. Another key feature is if you hover over each of these terms, you'll find a quick description. This is useful in case you need more information on what goes in each box. Again, many of these terms in a brief description can be found in the quick reference guides I had mentioned earlier. If you look to the right of the screen, you'll also see a measures drop-down. If you remember from Krishna's presentation, a measure is an instrument, device, or method that provides information, often numeric. Here you'll find different measures such as measures for standardized tests and other quantitative and also qualitative measures. Okay, now if we go back to the top of the page, you'll also see a Save button. So just make sure to always save your POMT file, and you can always save your .rel file in the location of your choosing, and that's where you'll be able to find your file when you want to open it in the existing program section. Additionally, you'll see a Reports button for the Outcomes page. Here you can print your raw data or export it into many formats, such as PDF, CSV, or text. Okay, so now let's go over one example together. Our program here is a Pacific High School, College, and Career Preparatory Program. So one of my short-term outcomes here is students attend prep courses. So I'd like to get your help in identifying an indicator. So I'm going to have a poll here, and I'd like your help in identifying an indicator for the outcome students attend prep courses. The options include individual student enrollment rates for prep courses, individual student attendance rate for prep courses, total student enrollment rate, or none of the above. Okay, so an indicator would be an observable and measurable behavior or finding for students attend prep courses. So let's look at the results. It looks like we have a few answers here, but overwhelmingly the majority of you said individual student attendance rate for prep courses. Now any of these would work, but the best answer would be individual student attendance rate for prep courses because we're looking at attendance. So let's fill that in for indicator. Let's go back to our screen. Okay, great. The next thing we want to fill in is measure. Again, I'd like your help here to find, to come up with a measure on how to measure the individual student attendance rate for prep courses. If you remember in Krishna's example earlier, one of his measures was scores on standardized tests. So what would be a good measure for individual student attendance rate for prep courses? You can put your ideas into the question box. Okay, so this one is not a poll, so we'll just type in your answers or comments. Okay, great. We have teachers' attendance records, days attended divided by total days, attendance to classes noted by professors, summary of actual student attendance records, and days present in class. Those are all excellent answers. So let's go ahead and fill in our measure. So here we'll do percentage of enrolled students who actually attend classes. And the source will be class attendance sheets. Okay, great. Okay, so now to save time, we've already filled out the rest. For target, we went ahead and put 95% attendance rate for students in prep courses. You'll see the scale on the right, and you can adjust the scale by using your mouse or using the left and right arrow buttons. So for actual, if we were to check attendance rate, say today, we found 70% attendance rate of students in prep courses. In terms of a benchmark, we found that in a district school survey, we found 80% attendance rate of students in prep courses. And then at a baseline in the beginning of the school year, we found 70% attendance of students in prep courses. So after we've entered all our information about our measure, we may want to see a summary of this outcome. You can do this by clicking on the yellow magnifying icon next to the word measure. And here you'll see a summary graph that shows the target, the actual, and the baseline scores, as well as text below that correspond with a specific measure. Each graph has a unique number associated with it. So for example, S211 means that this graph is a short-term outcome from measure 1, which is part of indicator 1, which is part of short-term outcome 2. Okay, so now we can close this. So again, now that we've provided all our evaluation details, make sure we save. And then we can also, at this time, if we want to print out our raw data or we can export it, we'll go to the Reports button and choose any one of those options. Okay. So this outcomes page can get very overwhelming with a lot of information on your outcomes and measures. To see a simple bird's eye view, you can use the interactive dashboard by going to the Dashboards page. This would be a good place to share your program evaluation plan with colleagues, especially for colleagues who do not need to see every evaluation detail. So let's go over a few key features. If you go to the overview, this section will tell you how to read the dashboard. So the dashboard has been designed to display the status of all your outcomes, and status is indicated by a color code, so green, yellow, and red. So green means that the actual progress of an outcome meets or exceeds its target. Yellow indicates that the actual progress of an outcome falls between the baseline and the target scores, and possibly one should proceed with caution. And red means that the actual progress score did not meet the baseline, and perhaps more attention should be paid to this outcome. So in this dashboards page, it's really important for you to notice which outcomes require more attention. And those would be the yellow and red indicators. So here you can take a closer look as to why certain outcomes are color-coded that way by hovering the mouse over the outcome to display more specific information. So let's look at this red outcome here. And you can click on the Measures button to investigate the outcome in more detail. You'll also see a little button here to print, so we can only print this selected outcome if we'd like. Or maybe you want to share your program's dashboard with other team members, supervisors, or collaborating colleagues. So to do this, we'll go to the top of the page, and here we'll have the report section for your dashboard. And here you can print out the entire dashboard, only the selected parts like that red outcome if you'd like to, or we can print out all the short-term, all the mid-term, all the long-term, or all the outcomes. You also have the option of exporting the data as a PDF file, which allows you to import into various other formats. To do that, you'll go to Print, change the destination to PDF, and then you'll save it as a PDF. And we can hit Cancel if you want to go back. So that's the end of our demonstration. I hope it gave you a good idea of the many benefits of creating a program monitoring and evaluation plan. I'd like to hand the webinar over to Joanne now.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for guiding us through all the ins and outs of the actual computer application. So we hope that the POMT app will be a user-friendly experience for you all and allow for in-depth program monitoring and evaluation in future. So to wrap up our webinar, we'll be opening the floor to our active participants for questions. We have about 20 minutes with Nolan Malone and Krishna Narayan. So please feel free to enter your questions into the questions and comments box on your right. We'll be reading the questions out loud before answering any of them. So I'll go ahead and hand over the presentation to both Nolan and Krishna.
Hello, everyone. Krishna and I are back to answer any questions that you might have. So we have the question screen open on our computers, and we'll read them off as they come in. But there was an earlier question I wanted to just answer now. I answered it privately to the person who made that or posted the question to the webinar, but I don't know if I answered it effectively. So the person asked, is there a better way of talking about the distinctions between measures and indicators? And so I wanted to just say that indicators are pretty high level. They're usually general. What in general could you think of that would allow you to evaluate the progress that you're making towards your outcomes? And that can be, for example, if it's college preparatory courses, you might say, that students are more aware of what their opportunities are when it comes to college. When it comes to the measures, it's going down a grain, getting a little bit more detailed, and talking about the specific metric. How would you actually measure that your students are more aware of college opportunities? And so that's when you start talking about percentages or the counts and the numbers and so forth. So I hope that that is a little bit better of an explanation when it comes to understanding the differences between indicators and measures. Measures is just a finer grain of look at the progress. That often includes a metric. So are there other questions up here?
Yeah, I think, Nolan, we have a question. Can the .rel file be stored in an environment like Google Drive for collaborating? Absolutely. That .rel file is used for both the ELM application as well as the POMT application. You can store that file on your local computer. You can store it on a shared drive within your school district. You can store it in Dropbox or any of the cloud services, and then people can pull it down. The application is not designed with workflow, so you can't have people making changes to the data at the same time. But in terms of sharing the information, absolutely, that's one of the benefits there. It's a very good question.
Another individual asked if it would have been helpful. To actually download the POMT ahead of time and play it along with the application while we were discussing it. And I wanted to let you know that in some of our face-to-face opportunities to share the application with folks, it's been a little bit troublesome because all of us learn at different rates and so forth. And sometimes you see a feature and you want to dig a little bit deeper, and the rest of the group's moving on. So that's why we thought it'd be helpful to just kind of walk through over the webinar and allow everybody to see it, see the actual application, not screenshots or anything, but actually how the application works. And before you actually go in and perhaps download the program and play with it yourself. And using that feedback feature, you can always give us an email, shoot us an email and let us know if it's working for you, if you're encountering problems, and we can often assist with you in those cases.
So we have another question just to confirm. The question is, so we can share the POMT file on a regular basis via Google Drive. Please confirm. The answer is yes, as long as you can, with your normal computer, either on a Windows or a PC or a Mac, as long as you have access to Save As, you can designate that destination. That file can be stored up there, and people can access it and take a look at it. So you could have teams that are working on executing a program, and you may have stakeholders that just want to look at the dashboard occasionally and not change data or put data in. If you store that .rel file in a common place, those stakeholders can pull it down and take a look at your progress. That's a good question. Thank you.
There was another question regarding the use of qualitative and quantitative measures. For those of you who haven't seen the Education Logic Model, or ELM, application that precedes this, there are opportunities to actually measure outcomes in qualitative measures. In this application, the Program Outcomes Measures and Targets application, you can designate any kind of source or metric that you seek to use when it comes to monitoring your progress. And as far as assigning a percentage to it or designating it as a number, you would just want to be a little bit more detailed on exactly how you're describing your qualitative metrics to assess your outcomes. Good question.
We have another question of an individual asking, can you do cumulative measures for charts to see progress visually? And I think the question here is towards showing a timeline, a specific starting time, a piece of data, and then progressing. At this point in time, we cannot show sort of cumulative time trending charts. That is something that people have asked for, and we have it on the list to take a look at. There's another person that's asking if we'll provide the URL for the recorded ELM webinar. They had missed that earlier. We'll make sure that that gets sent out to everyone so you can go back and look at that particular presentation.
Another question asks if when there's multiple people working on a very, very similar project or initiative, each of whom is preparing their own monitoring plan, is there a way of linking them all together through this application? I should let you know that that's a question we've been asked before, and so it's something that we've investigated. However, presently there isn't a way to link one POMT program to another POMT program, other than folks simply bringing them together and sharing the outputs. That would be the printouts or the files that they've created in common settings. Presently, they can't speak to one another. Only the logic model and monitoring files that you create on your own computer can actually be linked. Outside of that, it requires folks to actually share that information together. Sorry about that.
So the next question is around adding activities and inputs. The question is there a place for adding activities and inputs, the other components of a typical logic model? Both the ELM application that we have and the POMT application work together. And so you can either start by putting your program into the POMT application and then go back to ELM and create the logic model around it, or you can start in the ELM application, create a logic model, and then the monitoring components in POMT. So those components that you talked about, activities, inputs, and resources, those are typical in the logic model. So that's the place that that information resides. And then the exchange point between the two are around outcomes. We have outcomes in the ELM, and we have outcomes in the POMT, and that's the common point between the two of them. Both applications share the same .rel file, so you can start at either place and put those activities and resources and inputs in there.
Somebody mentioned that they're working on a development of a new program, and that this tool would have been helpful in getting that prepared for this current school year. And I just wanted to mention that the timing obviously is really, really important when it comes to program development and getting things off the ground. So one option would be to actually use this as kind of a way of piloting and really, really planning out over the current year the development of that program through this application, the Education Logic Model application, or other tools that you might have at your disposal. It might be a really, really good learning opportunity for the school to work on together in development in anticipation of perhaps next school year I know it comes a little bit too late for those learners that might be eager to participate in it now, but that might be an option. I also wanted to mention somebody asked whether or not these slides and this information that's been shared will actually be available afterward. And we will share the information about the archived webinar with everybody after we get it done. Because it's going to be posted to a public place, we just want to make sure that we have all the pieces in place before we send out the link to that. But we will send out a link to all the participants in this webinar so you can actually find that archived version of it online.
The next question is the exported text file in a format that you could combine details from several files? We provide a number of different ways where you can get the raw data and use it externally if you choose to. One is a PDF format. Another is a comma-separated variable file that can be imported to Excel or numbers on an iMac. The other is a text file that could be imported into Microsoft Word or a comparable word processing program. In terms of combining files through a text file to create sort of another .rel file, we really haven't looked at that. Perhaps you could ask your question offline and we might be able to give you a little bit more insight or more in-depth answer for your specific case.
There was also a question about being able to see the graphics and outputs that are created by both the education logic model application and this program outcomes, measures, and targets application in one kind of output. Unfortunately, because they're so specific, those save, print, export features are unique to each of the applications. So the logic model graphics would actually have to be produced from the ELM application, and the program monitoring graphics would have to be produced from the POMT application. Sorry about that.
The next question has to do with exporting comma-separated variable files. The question is, I see that the info can be exported as a comma-separated variable file, a CSV file. Does that mean the information from different projects can be exported as individual Excel files? And if so, then we could, in theory, combine these individual Excel files to focus on certain cells only. For example, target data. Yes, you could do that. You can export several projects, bring them into Excel, and then combine the data and just look at specific things that are important to your particular program. That flexibility we provided to you. We're not quite sure how people will use that in the field, but we wanted to make sure you had access to the raw data that you put in.
We don't see, we've strategically alternated back and forth between ourselves, Krishna and I, in order to answer everyone's questions, and it seems like we've gotten towards the end. So if folks don't have any other questions, if you do, please feel free to add them. I did want to reiterate once again that we will be posting this webinar up on our website and through our YouTube link as well, so that everyone can have access to go back and hear the responses to these kinds of questions, maybe go through the various pieces that may have been a little bit unclear if they'd like to, and also to provide us any feedback that you might have, whether it be on the webinar that we've just provided or on the actual tool that we're presenting to you today, the application. We're really, really grateful for any kind of feedback, and there's been some really great feedback so far, and I really appreciate the folks taking time to let us know. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We really, really look forward to being able to provide this tool to you and answer any more questions that you might have as we move forward. Did want to say that Joanne has put up a link to both our website originally, which is relpacific.mcrel.org, and now up on your screen is a link to the stakeholder feedback survey. And I think the team is going to go ahead and try to drop that into the comment field so that you can click on the link rather than having to write it down. It's a pretty long link, I must say. So the stakeholder feedback survey is something that really, really is an opportunity to provide us feedback on the webinar itself, and if there's things that we can do to improve the experience for all of you, especially when we're giving you some complicated content as we were today. So thank you everybody for all of your time and attention. And if you can, please be sure to go to that link for the stakeholder feedback survey and provide us any feedback that you might have. And we might follow it up with an email to all participants too with that link, just in case you're having a difficult time finding it on your screen now. Okay, thank you everyone. On behalf of Fatima, Krishna, Joanna, myself, I want to thank you once again.